Done a good job hosting this summit for the first time in Africa. The content of the summit, but also just the content of the work we've been doing with China, does speak to a very good partnership. First, because it's linking to what we ourselves has defined as our priorities, whether it's agriculture, training, infrastructure, energy generation, all those things, people to people. It's not taking us out of our development path, but it's enhancing our own development path. So I think it is a good partnership, and particularly because China also has resources, but also we have lessons to learn from their own development, how quickly they were able to lift more than 1 billion of people out of poverty. They say now they've got only about 70 million people who are still in poverty, which they are going to lift in the next 5 years out of poverty. So it's a good example for us to see that it's doable, because sometimes people just feel, oh, it's a pipe dream. It is doable. We can lift our people out of poverty if we do the right things. But secondly, there are also lessons to learn, because we know that in our industrialization, we have to do it slightly differently. We have to do it with a bigger mix of renewable clean energy, so that we don't end up with a lot of pollution and polluting the planet. We are lucky that now, when we are trying to take off in terms of industrialization, there are also technologies that maybe were not so easy to get 20, 30 years ago. Secondly, China can also give us access to resources, financial resources for our own development, not only in terms of aid, but also in terms of low interest loans. So I think it's a very good relationship. They also have to gain. China is going to be relocating billions worth of manufacturing to other parts of the world. We hope that some of it can come here, but we also want to train our people so that they can be innovators, not just working in lower end jobs, but some of them should be innovators, entrepreneurs themselves, and those that are not entrepreneurs can also get good jobs. So training is very important at all levels, from the high level engineering down to vocational training in artisans in many areas. Energy generation I've mentioned, modernizing agriculture, because we're spending billions and billions of dollars importing food, but we have the biggest arable land that is not used. So it's a contradiction. So we need to use that arable land to improve our agricultural productivity. We must modernize, and we must get into all the value chains, not just the raw again, but into the value chain, so that we also do agro-processing. So all these things are the things that we are going to be cooperating with them. And they are things that they themselves have done successfully. So I think it's a good...
There is a perception that China coming to the continent, it's another form of colonization. In other words, we are likely to find ourselves in a similar position where we had our colonizers coming to the continent and not really doing much to help the people of the continent. How do we ensure that perception is not a reality, but we address the perception?
That's why it's so important to know what you want. And we have Agenda 2063, which we have defined ourselves as our development path. So anyone who comes to partner us has to partner us in terms of implementation of Agenda 2063. If you don't know what you want, people will come and they will know what they want. But if you know what you want, then you can negotiate and you can come to an agreement about what needs to be done. Secondly, well, China is not going to start colonizing Africa now. We are not in a position to be colonized. Are you in a position to be colonized? I don't think we are. And I don't think we'll allow it. But as I say, now we know what we want. Whoever comes now must come in those terms. But like all countries, China also has its own interest. It doesn't mean that it's coming for charity. It has its own interest. But our partnership is based on where those interests cross. So where our interests are the same as theirs, we are able to work together. And I don't think we are going to be colonized. I think the people who say that loudest are our previous colonizers. And probably it's people who are not keen. The biggest partners of China are themselves the ones who are saying China is coming to colonize Africa. But it's important for Africa, as I say, to know what it wants, and to then, China knows what it wants, we know what we want, then we see where our paths are complementary.
And the Ivory Coast is now open for business. Well, this is a message Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara has brought to the FOCAC summit currently underway in Johannesburg, South Africa. Well, our reporter Dumaule Mohlaudi earlier spoke to the Ivorian president.
Now, when it comes to FOCAC, Mr. President, of